Conservative.
Christian. Mother. Wife.
Air Force veteran.
Gun rights advocate.
This is Stacy on the Right. Here's your host, Stacy Washington.
Hello, welcome back. Thanks for being here. 866-95-PATRIOT to join the show. 866-957-2874. And right now we're working on our guest. We have Tommy Aiello, Senior Director of Government Affairs at the National Taxpayers Union. Tommy, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Stacy. Thanks for having me.
It's good to talk to you again. So we have a really fun budget deadline. And of course, you and I are always in the unimind, the hive mind, the hive brain. How else can we say it? We are simpatico on cutting spending. And you're writing about this over at National Taxpayers Union. It's ntu.org. Talk to us about what's going on now.
So September is the start of budget season. At the end of this month, the fiscal year concludes, which means Congress needs to pass an appropriations package by September 30th. Otherwise, there's a government shutdown. Right now, Congress is sort of negotiating three different paths that they could take to reach that goal. The first one, as I just alluded to, if they don't come to an agreement, there's going to be a government shutdown. Nobody wants that. We want the government to stay open, just at lower levels. The second option is there's a bipartisan budget agreement, meaning Democrats, Republicans, they agree to fund the government through the end of next year, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, in the past, these budget agreements have resulted in higher levels of spending. So that's something we need to look out for. We need to make sure Republicans hold the line against spending more than they did last year. And then the third option is a short-term continuing resolution that would fund the government for, 2 to 3 months at a time at the same levels that they're currently spending. So it's anybody's guess about which way this is going to go, but we're really hoping that they're going to spend less next year than they did this year.
So how do we get to that point? Because, we've been through this budget dance before, and we've been through it with the Republicans before. GOP, they're on a really good run for this year. So I'll give them that. Usually by this point, first 6-7 months in of the Republican president's term, I feel like a little bit of anger. There's a little bit of something going on. There's things I've wanted that I've not gotten. I feel like the Republicans start to lose their energy. Doesn't feel like that's what's going on this go round. It's a little different. I'm glad, but we still need to kind of carefully pick our way through. We're not going to have help from the Democrats on getting any of this done.
Yeah, I think you just laid it out perfectly. We have a little bit of momentum this year, and I credit that to President Trump for always, all gas, no brakes. And I think, Republicans went into this year thinking we have a major tax deadline at the end of the year where the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to expire and almost everybody's taxes are going to go up. They were able to pass a bill in the first 6 months of the year, which was a great thing. It took the tax increase off the table. We cut taxes across the board for literally every single taxpayer. So now that they're in this period, I don't think they expected it to get done that quickly. So now we're asking them let's give some more attention to these fiscally responsible things that we've been campaigning on. And, we had a piece run this weekend in the Washington Examiner that lays out 4 or 5 things that should be at the top of all lawmakers' minds in September. One, we need to hold the line against spending more money. That means returning to pre-COVID spending levels. We can save about $400 billion a year just doing that. We think that's a good start. Honestly, I don't know how realistic it's going to be, but we need to make sure at the very minimum we don't spend more next year than we did this year. That's a very, very easy thing to do, and I'm hopeful that we'll keep that. The second one is more rescissions packages. You're seeing President Trump continue to claw back these monies that haven't been spent. These are monies that have been uncovered thanks to DOGE. There's tens of billions of dollars that can continue to be clawed back. I'm hopeful we're going to do that. And the third one is really we should do another reconciliation package. That's that same process that we did the one big beautiful bill. We should do that focused on deficit reduction. There's hundreds of billions of dollars a year that can be saved through that process. I'm hopeful, and I think Speaker Johnson and Republicans are open to it, and I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to do that. And when you take it all together, you could save hundreds of billions of dollars. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. And we've seen so far in this presidency, this 4-year term, which we're just a few months into, President Trump has created an unbelievable amount of momentum surrounding tariff revenue, which isn't meant to be a permanent thing. This is a negotiating tool, but it's still brought money in. Also, there's this, it feels fascinating to me, but the rescissions, to see that first round go through, I got a lot of hope out of that. And I got to tell you, Tommy, it's not often that the government takes action where I'm like, oh, that makes me feel hopeful. But I did. I felt really hopeful when I saw that we'd get even bigger ones. And you mentioned it. So is there anything you're thinking of specifically that they're going to target, or you're hoping they're going to target with rescissions?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of money still from the Inflation Reduction Act at the Department of Transportation, at the Environmental Protection Agency. These are money that specifically at the Department of Transportation, right? They're supposed to be building tracks. They're supposed to be making sure bridges are built. They have money for tens of billions of dollars that don't even go to any of those purposes. And I think that they're going to start taking a look at some of those things, clawing that money back. One thing I do want to alert your viewers to, or your listeners to, is there's a push right now to extend the premium tax credit. This is for health. This is a healthcare tax credit for people that don't, subscribe to Obamacare or have their own private insurance. This is something completely different from that. It's an Obamacare. It started under Obamacare, but President Biden, as part of his COVID spending spree, he plussed it up for high income earners. And it was supposed to be a temporary measure. It added about $30 billion a year to the debt, to the deficit. We're still spending this money. That expires at the end of this year. Democrats are trying to work with Republicans to make it permanent. This is a $30 billion a year program that is basically subsidizing Obamacare. As Republicans, we should hold the line on this, let it expire. We're really concerned that this is going to be included in some sort of Democrat-Republican budget agreement this September. So we're really hopeful that Republicans are going to hold the line. We shouldn't be continuing to support Obamacare and Biden-era COVID programs. It was a temporary program, and they want to make it permanent. That is just boggles my mind. It really does.
Just like anything the government creates, it's like, oh, temporary. That's the gateway drug. That's how they get you to open up and say yes. It's just for COVID, and then here we are. How many years out of COVID are we? So you got to get rid of that. All right, so then let's talk about the fiscal roadmap itself. September's legislative agenda is now upon us. It's September 2nd. We're ready. The American people are like, okay, we've had Labor Day. Our tummies are still a little tight from eating, although we didn't barbecue over here, which was a little weird, but we had so many other things going on. Now it's time to get lean. It's time to, get back on the treadmill, et cetera. So what should we look for?
Well, let's just take a step back, right? We're $37 trillion in debt. We don't get to that exorbitant level overnight. It's years of overspending. This fiscal year, we're going to spend an extra $2 trillion more than we take in. There's a significant imbalance between the taxes we collect and how much we're spending. When you look at the spending altogether, about 67% of it is on autopilot, so 2/3 of it. That goes to things like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The rest is all discretionary spending. That's things like the military, the Department of Health and Human Services, education, all of them. You can't really touch the 67%. If you touch the 33%, like I said, we need to return to pre-COVID spending levels, save about $400 billion that way. It's a drop in the bucket of a $2 trillion deficit, but we start to turn the fiscal ship where there might be a looming debt crisis over the next 10 years. The more that we cut today, it extends that timeline that we have to really get our entitlement situation under control. So if we can do that this month, just start to turn the ship just a little bit. It's a big ship. It takes a long time to turn. If we do that, And if we do a reconciliation package where we go after, things, some of these social safety net programs like Medicaid. Right now, thanks to Obamacare, we subsidized working age adults that choose not to work at a higher rate than seniors and people in poverty. It makes no sense. So states have an incentive to keep these young working aged adults on their programs because they get more money than they would insuring seniors and people in poverty. It makes absolutely no sense. We're hopeful that a second reconciliation package is going to start to address that and a handful of other really misguided federal programs that are causing our debt just to explode. So if you take all of those things together, like I said, you could save hundreds of billions of dollars a year. It's not going to completely solve the budget problem, but it really is going to start that process where we can start to turn the ship and we can avoid this looming debt crisis that is going to occur in the next 10 years.
Okay, so good stuff. A great place to be. I mean, we would be in a much different frame of mind if we hadn't passed the one big beautiful bill and we were now sitting down to try to put something together. I think the place where we are right now is a good one. It's a good launching point from which to have these good legislative agenda items taken care of, and to have people, to have them really, really locked in to what we're trying to do here, which is reduce the deficit spending and reduce the size of government so that it can cost less, so that we don't have to be in deficit spending. That should be a primary priority for anybody in Congress right now, regardless of party. I know the Democrats would never agree, but everybody should have that as a goal.
Yeah, we really should. And, we talk about these big numbers, but what does it actually mean for working people? The more money the government spends that they don't have, it means they have to borrow it. They have to print it. When the Federal Reserve prints more money, it causes inflation. We saw the inflation skyrocket after COVID for a little bit because of the supply chain, but mostly because of the Biden spending spree, where we spent $10 trillion basically in a year and a half period. That caused inflation to skyrocket, and it caused our paychecks to get degraded. And I think when you talk to working class people, they're still feeling that pinch. And they're feeling that pinch is because we're spending so much more money than we take in. So it really does impact all of our pocketbooks and our wallets. So I'm really hopeful that, if we can get our spending situation under control, it'll continue to put downward pressure on inflation. People will feel more money because they're not having to spend more money every time they go to the grocery store on the same products. Plus, with the one big beautiful bill giving every taxpayer, literally every taxpayer, a tax cut, some in the thousands of dollars. If you're a tipped worker, no tax on tips. If you work overtime, no tax on overtime. All of those things will boost your paycheck. And if we get inflation under control, it'll mean we can actually keep more money in our pockets, not spend more money just on the same things we've been buying. So it really does impact working people.
I love it. I love it. So everyone, we got to get our kind of get ourselves, shake ourselves back, get locked in and ready for this budgetary process. We got to get ready for it, be prepared to make phone calls and emails, and especially touch our legislators when we bump into them, not just in D.C., but maybe in the home district when they pop home for the weekend or what have you. You catch them at the Walgreens or CVS or wherever. You got to make sure and let them know, look, we want to cut spending. We were elected, the Republicans were elected for a reason, and the American people are expecting some good governance here in the control of the purse strings. The National Taxpayers Union, their website is ntu.org, ntu.org. Tommy Aiello, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and always keep up the good fight, Stacy. And to all your listeners and viewers, tell them to keep it up too. We really appreciate you.
We appreciate you too. Thank you so much for joining in.